Today I'm going to show you how to make a basic but very delicious beef stew. So we're going to start by heating some oil, and I'm going to add some beef stew meat. I have some local Pecatonica Valley Farms beef stew meat. Alright, while the meat is cooking, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to season the meat. Some fresh ground black pepper. Alright, so the one step that's fairly important here is that we want to transfer the meat into a separate platter so that we can then stir fry or saute the onions. So we want the beef and all the juice. We're going to keep all this yummy, delicious juice in that bowl. I'm not even going to rinse the pot because all the flavor of the meat is still in there. So we'll just add a little bit more oil and then put the onions directly into that heated oil. So once the onions have cooked a little bit, they're a little bit softer, kind of glossy and translucent, we're going to add the wine to it. I'm basically going to cover the bottom of the pot with wine and let it evaporate down a little bit before adding the beef and then the stock into the soup. That was probably about a half a cup. The other liquid we're going to add at this time is Worcestershire sauce and just a tablespoon of that because the flavor can be pretty strong. And we'll let both of those liquids cook down just a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and add the beef back in. See, the weight is about 4 wine sips long. There was 4 sips. Alright, so if you look now, you can see that a lot of the liquid has boiled off and it's thickened just a little bit. And so we can add the beef back into this along with all the juice, of course. I'm going to add in a couple of cloves of garlic. I used about 2 pretty large cloves of garlic. And it's just minced. You can crush it if you want, or mince it, squeeze it. The herbs that I like to use with beef stew are thyme and bay leaf. So I have some fresh thyme actually. I brought it in for the winter and it's been growing really nicely in the windowsill. So I'm just gonna kind of peel the leaves off of the stems. And then I would say about a teaspoon of fresh thyme, maybe a half a teaspoon of dried thyme. Of course, we'll add a few bay leaves, about three bay leaves should do the trick. And then I'm going to add 3 medium yellow potatoes. So any kind of waxy potato that's going to hold together once it's boiled, we'll go ahead and put those in. I cut them up and then I put them in cold water so they don't turn brown while we're waiting to add them to the stew. I love potatoes in soup, so I like to be generous with potatoes. If you aren't a fan of having so many potatoes, you could add other vegetables. You could do celeriac root or parsnip or turnip roots if you wanted to. I personally just love potatoes with beef. The other thing I really like to put in beef stew is carrots. So I have carrot slices here, about a cup of sliced carrots. These are beautiful red carrots that came from the farmer's market in the fall, and they've stored really well in my fridge. And then you just want to pour liquid so that it covers everything in the pot. And you can use beef stock if you have it, or vegetable stock. I don't have either of those today, but I think with the beef being cooked down in here, it's going to be pretty rich anyway. So I'll just go ahead and add water. That was about 2.5 cups. You just want to cover the top because we want sort of a thick beef stew. So at this point, I'm going to cover it and let it simmer until the beef is tender and the carrots are tender, probably about 45 minutes. So we'll check back in about 45 minutes and see how our stew is looking. Alright, so the stew is pretty much done. It's been simmering for about 45 minutes or an hour. And so I'm just going to thicken it up a little bit by making a roux. So I'm going to melt some butter in a saucepan. This is about 2 tablespoons of butter. And then we're just going to add a little bit of flour, about a tablespoon of flour. So we're going to stir this and just kind of stir it pretty frequently so that the flour, it doesn't start to burn. And then we'll just add that directly into the soup. And for flour to thicken, it needs to boil. So you do want to let this simmer in the soup for maybe 5 minutes or so. And then once that's done, we can add salt and taste for salt, and the soup will be ready to eat. All right, well, that's how to make a delicious beef stew, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. From my kitchen to yours, enjoy your meal.